Picking favorites is hard. I don't know why everybody makes it look so easy. And when I did my favorites video, I was able to list off that 10 very easily, and then for like a week I was like, but what about? So here are my honorable mentions. Because apparently I'm indecisive and I can't make a decision to save my life. So here it go. Hi friends, welcome back to Bookmas. I am Shelby Monet and this is Shelby in the Book Club. In today's video, we're going to talk about my honorable mentions for the year. These are books that maybe didn't make my top 10, but they were books that I thought about throughout the year that didn't quite make it to like the Coochie book list or the indie author list or whatever the case may be, but they kind of lingered in my head still. So I wanted to share them with you. Before we get started, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and share. We are still growing our family here. The more, the merrier. The more books we can read and find out about. I mean, just tell the people. Everything will be linked down below in the underneath a bar. Read the dang underneath a bar, okay? It's underneath of the video. I do a lot of work to make it look nice and put all the little emojis and stuff and all the links and stuff. Go in there and click them. It helps me. And then I can make more videos for you. I know y'all like the videos. Y'all be telling me. Y'all be telling me. Let's get into it for real this time. If you see me looking down, I am looking at the mini girl. This is my iPad mini. I read on her. I take notes on her. I feel like you might need to get you one. I don't know. I'm just saying. It's great. I love her. Where I go, she go. Where she go, I go. This is my homegirl. In no particular order. First up, we have The American Queen by Vanessa Miller. The reason I love this book so much is because it told me about history that I had no idea about. This is about a couple that were slaves. They were set free, which in turn led them to leading the rest of the slaves away to new land that they purchased, tilled, took care of, and set up like generational wealth for this particular community that they created. So she is referred to as the American Queen because she was the queen of this town that she and her husband created. Fact check me on the they were free part. I believe they were freed because I think it was after the war. But it's just, it made me realize how important historical fiction is. I think there is a stereotype for Black historical fiction, especially when it talks about slavery in some way, shape, or form, that it's always just going to be about the abuse. It's always just going to be about the terrible things that have happened. Whereas this story, although it had sad bits, gave a different perspective, right? And I think we need to remember that the fiction part of the historical fiction is, it could be in real life her name was Shelby, but in the book her name is Ashley. Like, I need y'all to be a little bit more serious when y'all talk about historical fiction. But The American Queen was very, very good. Next we have Masquerade by Sanganyomi. When I first read this book, I was a little disappointed because somewhere it was described as a historical fantasy, and I love historical fantasy, especially Black historical fantasy. It's not that. It's just a historical fantasy. So when I first read it, I was disliking it because I felt lied to. But when I sit back and think about the actual story, I really enjoyed Masquerade. So it's about a woman who is considered a witch, and she is approached by a king who is in love with her and wants to marry her. But she refuses to marry him until her mother is able to come to the compound, the king's compound. She would be his second wife, but he is like enamored with her. In turn, because she comes from a lower class, his mother is giving her hell. The community is giving her hell. She has to go through all of these different trials and tribulations to prove herself, and to prove to him who, you know, like, I do care about you, but I said I would marry you when my mama get here. You said you was gonna find my mama, you didn't find my mom. So no, figure it out. Okay? But then there is a plot twist. And all I'm gonna say is I'm always here for a black woman's rage. Okay? Burn it down, heifer, to the ground. Next, we have Genesis by Aubrey J. This is a romance. I love this book so much because it's hilarious. Like, it is so funny. And I couldn't remember the last time a book made me laugh out loud in this particular way. So it's about a woman who is in a relationship with a man that is a goof troop. He just silly. He don't take nothing serious. And she's just like, she finds out she's pregnant, and she comes home one day and he is sitting in front of the television with his footy pajamas on, a mixing bowl full of cereal. And she is like, I am not taking care of this grown ass man and a baby. Kiss my ass and haul it to hell. I'm not doing that. Okay. He has to prove that he is worthy and that he can do the things to be the man that she needs him to be. It was super cute, but it was hilarious. The little jokes and things that he would say, like, I felt like I couldn't read real good because I was laughing so hard. Next, This Cursed House by Del Sandine. I read this, was that last month or the month before last? It's technically a horror. I wasn't scared, but a woman who has the power of sight, she can see ghosts. She has been able to all her life. She gets hired to work with his family in New Orleans. When she gets to New Orleans, she finds out that nobody really likes his family and that they're a little bit weird, and she's trying to figure out, well, like, why are they weird? What's going on? So on and so forth. And all of these family secrets pertaining to her and this life that she didn't know about comes to the forefront, on top of the fact that they think she can help them break a family curse. It was well written. I listened to the audiobook. I enjoyed it. I will say that there are some conversations of incest in reference to keeping the bloodline clean. So the family that she is helping, they are white passing. So, you know, they would mate with distant cousins to keep the skin fair. It's gross. It's disheartening to see people openly disgusted by their blackness, but it's time period accurate. I don't like when things like incest or sexual assault are on the page without reason. Does that make sense? Like, in this particular case, without spoiling anything for anyone, in this particular case, it's important to who that family is and the things that they're doing, and it's time period accurate versus it just randomly being in the story. Okay? Okay. Next, we have The American Daughters by Maurice Carlos Ruffin. This is the book that solidified my friendship with Sarah, Annotate with Sarah. I read this earlier this year. I was really excited about it. It was my first Maurice Carlos Ruffin book. And as I was reading it, it's telling the story of a slave that she's telling her story as she lived in New Orleans. There was something set up in New Orleans where she was a fancy girl. Well, her mother was. So it opened them up to a different type of lifestyle. So they didn't live on the plantation. They lived in the city. And was like, her mom and then her were like his mistresses. that lived in this house. Obviously he still owned them, but they had quote unquote freedom, which led to her being involved with a group of slave women that were spies, right? Why I wasn't enjoying it is because the voice of the book, the cadence and the tone was off. It felt like, to me, it felt like somebody else was telling the story every once in a while, like the voice would change. But there is a plot twist at the end that answers all of those questions. So I have a better appreciation for the story once I got to the end. But also it was like a full circle moment. It taught me, one, to start doing more research on the authors that I'm reading, right? Because the plot twist is something that he does in a lot of his work. I had no idea. It also taught me the benefit of just asking questions to people that have read the book that you're currently reading, right? They don't necessarily have to give you spoilers. But if Sarah had never told me to keep reading, I would have DNF'd it when he was doing a lot with his style and with, like, it's a good book. Like, the story is really good, but also he's like playing with style with how he wrote that book. So it taught me a lot. Right? It taught me that sometimes you do need to finish a story, right? Sometimes you do need to ask questions. It's okay to ask questions about books, right? No matter where your comprehension skills are, no matter how good of a reader you are, sometimes you just have to ask questions. You'll get the answers you're looking for. Next, I have Stash. This is by Laura Cathcart Robbins. If you are subscribed to my podcast that I co-host with my friend Jess, you know that we interviewed Laura for our podcast. She was our first author guest. I loved her memoir. I actually really enjoyed talking to her as well. She talks about her journey through addiction, right? I think the thing that I enjoyed about it was how honest she was. I feel a lot of people like to hide certain things when they're talking about the bad times in their life, but I learned a lot about addiction that I probably would not have known, because they're just conversations that you just don't have, right? So I really enjoyed how she told her story. I'll link the podcast episode down below, so if you guys want to listen to it, you can, because she answers a lot of questions and we talk about a lot of different things. So I really, really enjoyed it. Next, I have Karma by Sean. You guys know that I love Sean. I've talked about a few of her books over this year, and in some of these videos. Karma is a arranged marriage. Both the female main character and the male main character in this book both work like in the mob, like they come from mafia families, and them being married is a part of a contract. And she is like totally not with it, but there is a scene where he goes to like get her from her day job and was like, come in this car with me for a second, I need to talk to you. And he got that lady together in the back of the car. Sometimes you just need a little act right. That's all you need. You need a man that's gonna come snatch you up a little bit and be like, and don't do it again. Just get you to get right real quick. Just need to get you together. That's all it is. And then last but certainly not least, I have Homeward by Angela Jackson Brown. So this tells the story of a woman living in the South in the 50s and 60s, where she has to come home because she is pregnant, but the baby isn't her husband's. So she has like made this mistake. There's all of this stuff happening. There is conversation of loss, so trigger warning, loss of a spouse, loss of a child. And she is home trying to piece her life back together in the midst of the civil rights movement, right? And there's this conversation about what does it actually mean to get your life together, and how is community a part of that. So she was able to find herself, but also help her community find themselves when deciding to vote, not to vote, who to vote for, so on and so forth. I think it's a very it was a very timely book for this year, especially with the way that things turned out. But it was one of those books that kind of just stuck with me. I kind of thought at first that it was kind of like long and drawn out and I wasn't really connecting the pieces together, but once I got to the end, I was like, I see what she did. I see what Miss Angela was doing here. I see the vision. I see the vision. Getting your life together isn't only something that you do alone, but sometimes it's a community effort. I think we often think that it takes a village only means up until the child is 18, but it takes a village for your entire life, and that village may shift, right? So it was a good story. Without further ado, if no one told you today I love you, you are kind, you are smart, you are important, if to no one else, to me. Let me know in the comments. Leave me a cow emoji, because that song by Doja Cat been in my head. Bitch, I'm a cow. Bitch, I'm a cow. I don't say meow. Bitch, I'm a cow. Bitch, I'm a cow. Leave the emoji. I love you. Bye.